very unique because all of our drivers here are dealing with dedicated customers. So we can predict the volumes of the freight, the workload, and the schedules.
And that is Jessica Mata of Wellington Motor Freight. And she's here discussing her recent win of an award and the tips and tricks of recruiting and retention. Join us this week on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
Hi.
Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Winner of National Recruiting and Retention Symposium Recruiter of the Year. Oh, that's well deserved, Jessica, and welcome to the show. Why?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why you were picked and named Recruiter of the Year?
Honestly, I think I was probably up against a lot of really deserving people. And actually, Derek Koza and his wife, Stephanie, took me out for dinner last night to congratulate me on winning the award. And we discussed it a lot. It's hard, I think, sometimes talking about yourself.
Yep.
And it certainly was unexpected. But I think when you work hard, it's nice to be recognized for the hard work that you do. So certainly I'm humbled by it, but it is hard to talk about just because I think I love my job. I love what I do. And it's something I do every day. So
Good deal.
Well, why don't you tell us about your employer a little bit, Wellington? Because I got to think that it doesn't matter how good of a recruiter you are. If you're working for a terrible organization, you would never win such an award. So
that's completely true. For sure. You have to work for a good company that their core foundation and their culture is certainly a place where you want to be and want to stay. But I like the culture in this office. I like the fact that management listens, considers change, is always adapting, takes care of their people, whether it's giving them things in the office or their salaries, benefits, all of that, right? So all of that is so important.
Cool.
And it may be over by the time we release this episode because for our listeners and viewers, we do record, but Jessica is inundated at the moment because the month of June is Employee Appreciation Month at Wellington Motor Freight. Tell us about that a little bit.
We actually do Driver Appreciation Month in May. So the full month of May is for them. And then for all the employees, and we do the month of June, and every single day is for them. So today is barbecue day. So we are at all of our facilities. We have barbecues going on for all the office staff. So we have our facility in Cambridge, and then we also have our facility here in Pushland, or Guelph, as people know it. And then we have a Guelph North facility, which is where all our accounting staff are. And there's a barbecue going on there today as well.
Cool. Wow, that's awesome.
And if a driver was in one of the facilities, I would assume they would be invited?
Absolutely. Actually, we have fully stocked driver lounges here. So we have like coffee, tea, and then snacks. So snacks available for them every time they come in. So it doesn't matter if it's in an appreciation month or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Why do you think recruiting is so difficult at the moment? At least I think it's difficult. I'm not a recruiter, but
when I have this discussion with people, I always think a lot of recruiting has to do with listening and trying to make sure that you're the right place for someone, because you may not be, right? And I think it's okay for you to realize that you may not be the best fit for a candidate that comes in that is potentially qualified to work for you. Listening to what they need, if they need to be home more, if they're taking care of a parent or a child, if there's certain days that they can't be out, even comes down to like cultural needs as well, holidays that they celebrate, holy days that they celebrate, being able to respect that and accommodate. Sometimes you're not always the best fit for someone, but it's okay to be honest with them, I think. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of recruiters are not taught. They're taught to fill the seat.
Yeah. I was going to say, you get that analogy that a lot of people use, work, life balance. But not everybody's scale is the same. So it's very important to do what you're talking about, is listening to that driver to find out, are they a good fit for us? And are we a good fit for them?
Exactly. We know that at Wellington, we have a really good foundation in terms of management, in terms of organization, how we structure things, the jobs that we offer people, the salaries that we offer. So trying to give them the bigger picture, the total compensation, the benefits, their hours, all of that up front, and see if that's a good fit for them. Obviously, the vetting is pretty extensive and depends on the role that we're hiring for, what we do before we're bringing someone in for an in-person interview. If we're doing like the screening, how many screenings are happening. So if it's like over the phone, Zoom, stuff like that. So there's definitely stuff that goes on with inter-office hiring in terms of driving. We have to do that road test. Getting them scheduled in sometimes is a little bit difficult because most drivers, if they're looking for a job somewhere, they're probably working. So it's hard sometimes to work with those schedules. So aligning that tends to be a big hurdle in the very beginning, as well as collecting all the documentation that we need. CVR abstract, can they get into an office or can they request it online? Criminal record, stuff like that. So being able to go and provide us all the documentation we need is also essential to be able to make sure that they qualify.
And I heard you say you hire employees. So I assume that the truck drivers are all employees of Wellington?
Of course, yes. But I also take care of inter-office hires and stuff like that as well. So in my position in recruiting and HR, I am hiring for inter-office staff as well.
Yeah, no, my point was that they're employees and not self-employed truck drivers.
No, they're not. We do have some owner-operators here, but not a lot of them. So we do have mostly company drivers here. We don't do driver incorporated. That's just one of the things that we don't do at all.
Well,
nice.
And the other thing, we had Mike Zellick on the podcast, has to be over a year ago now.
I think so, yeah.
But he had mentioned that the pay structure can be unique at Wellington.
Yeah, so all of our drivers here, with the exception of our part-time on-call, like seasonal workers, all of our drivers are paid salary. Very unique because all of our drivers here are dealing with dedicated customers, so we can predict the volumes of the freight, the workload, and the schedules. And if anything does ever come up with the schedules, and we are able to say, okay, today we don't have work for you, but you're still getting paid. It's a situation of a driver getting a layover. Some carriers pay $100, some pay $150, $200. At least they're getting paid their regular rate.
Right.
They're not called out on a specific day, right? So good stability for them, making sure that they're able to manage their money properly and making sure that our drivers don't have to reach into their pocket to pay for anything. Accounting related as well is also really important to us.
I was going to say that's got to be really helpful towards your retention program.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely has a lot to do with it for sure.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I think many companies would struggle to pay a driver a salary because of the nature of the business. Today you run 250 miles and tomorrow I want you to run 600 miles. How does Wellington get around it? And I know you talked a little bit about dedicated customers, but is that the whole secret?
I think it all is communication, right? Before they're signing the employment contract, there's certainly discussions that go on in terms of what the expectancy is for the runs that they're doing, the timelines, or if there's appointments, stuff like that, right? So for the most part, our lanes are a dedicated area. So those drivers are going into a dedicated area, and that's what the salary depicts, is the area that they're going into. We wouldn't be sending a driver doing like an open board dedicated route. A lot of it is you are dedicated going into Illinois or you are dedicated going to California. So that way they know that there's a routine in the structure, whether they're leaving on a Tuesday or they're leaving on a Thursday. They know what the expectancy is or how many they're supposed to complete in a year. And we do the quarterly reviews as well. So we will go and discuss everything with the drivers. Are things going as planned? What can we do better? What can you do better? Stuff like that. So it's certainly a team environment. We will take a lot of input from the drivers into consideration, especially when there's any changes that go on in the routes. We always will ask them, hey, what can we do better? What can the customer do better? Would it be better if the loads were ready at a different time to help maybe avoid traffic and stuff like that? So our customers are pretty good too in terms of like listening and trying to help us adapt to make sure it's more efficient for them as well.
Awesome.
But yeah, I think it all just comes down to communication with the drivers and that they know and understand what the expectancy is for that salary. That there are going to be times that maybe around the holidays it slows down. So maybe there won't be work between Christmas and New Year's, but they're still going to be paid.
And one of the other things I heard you just say is quarterly reviews.
I like that.
I don't know of many companies that properly conduct annual reviews. They do it on paper because it's required, but that's about as much as they really do. They don't often, or at least the companies that I work with, and maybe I only work with the bad examples, that they don't really sit down with the driver once a year. You're saying that you do this quarterly?
Yeah, we actually, for a lot of it, we talk to the drivers on a regular basis. So we are texting, calling, in person when we see them. I do visit other facilities. We do have drivers that are based at different locations within Ontario. So I do travel out. We'll go take them out for dinner, talk about concerns that they have as well. But we have a really unique thing here as well. We call them dispatch evaluations. We send those evaluations out to our drivers, and our drivers can evaluate their dispatchers as well. So it's like
Excellent.
like that reverse. So you truly have that team environment, and the drivers feel heard.
Yeah.
And the changes that they think should happen are considered. So definitely we want to have that two-way street. And I think that's a really unique thing that Wellington has that I have never experienced with any other previous employees. The vast amount of listening and considering the driver's input that we have here is big.
So it sounds like it's not your average compliance review, it's performance reviews. How are you performing versus how are we as a company performing to support you, which is excellent. Something definitely needed more in the industry for sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of companies, they want to do stuff like that, but they just don't have maybe the manpower. A lot of people are spread pretty thin in the industry for sure. Nobody's perfect. I think everyone's trying to better themselves, and there's a lot of really great companies out there doing a lot of really great things. And I think Wellington is just trying to stay on that level, or even sometimes implement things that other companies can implement and take and do themselves as well. We're all in it together. We're all in the trucking industry, and we all just want to make sure that we're bringing people food and medication and all of the stuff that they need. So it's just making sure that it's not really competition. We're all on the same team, ultimately.
Excellent. That's great to hear. That's awesome.
Well, those of you at Wellington are all on the same team. Now, just out of curiosity, are you hiring at the moment?
We are hiring. We are hiring drivers currently, and we're hiring in inter-office staff. So right now, Wellington is going through a very unique time where we are planning succession for within the next 5 years. So a lot of moving parts are going on within the office, trying to make sure that people are in a position to excel or succeed. We're looking to grow, double our size within the next 5 years.
Oh, cool.
There's a lot of ideas going on with staff being like, hey, do you want to further your education? Where do you see yourself in 5 years here? Do you want to be in a management role? If you do, let's get you there. Here's a mentor. Here's some courses that you can do. So we're trying to line people up in terms of that. So there's just a lot of moving parts within this. So we are looking to add more office staff. Right now, I'm looking for customer service reps. I'm looking for track and trace rep and some accounting. So accounts payable, accounts receivable. In terms of drivers, I'm looking for part-time drivers out of Strathroy, Ontario, and I am looking for part-time seasonal drivers out of Bedford, Quebec. And those drivers are paid hourly. So it is not like we're calling you out for only 3 days, hours a day. Maybe you'll get a call on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe during the week to work an 8 to 10 hour shift. So it's not full-time work, but we do have trucks that are coming in September, I believe, 10 more units. So I'll have more trucks within the next few months. So yeah, always looking for qualified drivers. I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. So just trying to always build those connections is so important.
Right. How big a fleet are you guys right now?
Right now, so we have different divisions. If we're talking Wellington Motor Freight, I believe, if we're not at 100, we're pretty darn close to
Cool.
100.
Cool.
And then we have other divisions as well. So I think with those other divisions, we're at about 60-ish, maybe
Yep.
between 60 and 70.
Sure.
We're dealing with the same supply chain issues as everyone else.
Yep.
So we do have
Yep.
some drivers in leased units or rental units right now
Sure.
that are just temporary and not spec'd out the way we want them, waiting for our actual trucks to come in. Now it's a lot of patient drivers that are sitting here, the same that every other company is dealing with right now,
Yeah.
which is lack of trucks, lack of equipment, and we just want to get them in a really nice truck that has everything that they need and set them up for success.
Sure. It's nice to hear companies that are able to grow organically. There's been a lot of acquisitions in the market and whatnot. So it's nice to hear like yourselves, like Wellington and whatnot, are growing and looking to add more members to the team.
Well,
Yes, always.
what I heard that was, again, a bit unique, I think, in our industry is Jessica said mentoring. That
Yes.
they're laying the plans for growth and they're
Mhm.
asking the current employees, what do you want to do? And then we're going to mentor you to get you there to meet your
Yeah.
goals. And
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah, mentoring is so important. I've been very blessed with getting to know some I want to say big dogs in the industry
Mhm.
on a basis. And I consider myself very lucky to have mentors like them in my life. So I appreciate that when we're doing the succession planning, that we have a lot of really strong people that are leading others to build them and be their successor. So it's nice to see. It's some positive when you walk around in the office, two people bouncing ideas off of each other, and I like that a lot.
Cool.
is there somebody mentoring you at Wellington Motor Freight right now?
I always say that Mike Zellick is just a good mentor, but Mike Zellick was a good mentor for me before I even joined Wellington. So him and I connected on social media when I worked at my previous company. And we would always bounce ideas off of each other in terms of salaries, rates, increases that were happening, even in the industry in general, trends that companies were going towards. And I've networked
Mhm.
with a lot of drivers out there. So I feel like I'm really driver centric. And whenever I have questions about things in the industry, I'm always posting it on Facebook, asking for driver input. So it's just one of those things that I feel like I've always done since
Mhm.
being in recruiting in HR, because I feel like it's necessary to always keep your ear to the ground and know what people
Yes.
actually want versus
Yep.
what the company wants or needs. Of course, the company's needs are important, but also everyone that works for you is also equally as important, right?
Mhm.
You don't have a new contract with a new customer. So it's just making sure that we can align everything and make sure that everyone has their needs filled.
Cool.
Are you mentoring somebody at the moment?
So we have a couple new people to the industry up in operations, and I always am going up and checking on them, making sure I'm having those conversations. So I would say informally, yes, not formally, but I'm always making sure that I'm planting those seeds, that I'm connecting them with people on LinkedIn that would be important for them as well. So I feel like that's an important thing, is especially myself being in the industry for 22 years, I've connected with a lot of people. And if I can't answer the questions, I'm rusty when it comes to dispatching now. I've been doing it for over 6 years. If they have a question in operations upstairs that I can't answer, then I'll connect them with someone that can
Mhm.
help them. And I think that's important, to share your connections, because we've all gone out and done all these industry events and we've all shaken hands with people and got their business cards and added them to LinkedIn. But some of these new people, they don't have that opportunity, right?
No.
They're sitting behind the desk or sitting behind the screens. They can't put a face to the name. They don't know who is important to talk to and who's not. They don't know who's had 20 years in the industry or who has, right? It's just important to share those connections and not hoard all that information to yourself. Of course, when you need help yourself, you know who to reach out to, but sometimes
Right.
a bit of
It's nice to have those connections, just to find more connections or to be able to pay it forward to the next folks.
always.
Yep.
Karma is a big thing, right?
Yes. Big time. Agreed,
Yeah.
Jessica. Agreed.
And this is and that's something I've been thinking a lot about as I begin my exit from this industry is what am I leaving behind? Have I had
Yeah.
an impact? And how can I help the next generation? It's become much more important to me now in the last
Yeah.
probably 5 years than it ever was before.
Yeah. Yeah. Making sure you're leaving that legacy, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a big deal for sure. I think people can see your name on a billboard, but not actually get to know you, the person. So it's just one of those things, building those true, genuine connections with people is so important. Doesn't need to be a real mentorship. It can be a friendship where someone comes to you and has a question and they feel comfortable enough to just ask you something like that and not think that they're getting in trouble. Like being in HR and recruiting is just one of those things where the HR person is around, right? Everyone's got to be on their best. It's not always like that, right? I'm a human outside work as well. I make mistakes just like everybody else does. And I need mentorship just as much as other people do as well, right? Just being a good.
You can always tell the people that have lots of great knowledge in their heads because their hair is popped out. And now all that knowledge is trying to get out. So it's a perfect time to come in and scoop up some of that knowledge from folks like Chris before he leaves, right? Because you can almost scrape it off with a spoon. There's so much oozing out. But yeah, because his hair won't grow anymore because he's just got so much knowledge in his head. We got to get that out and get it into the young folks of today.
Yes.
I've been blessed, as you said, you're informally mentoring right now. And all of my mentorships have been very similar. They've been informal. My safety mentor, Claude Chalk, when I was with TNT, he taught me so much, but it wasn't a formal mentorship.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend, Kim Richardson, has blessed me with his time. What's that?
Yep.
Yeah. I've actually asked him to be my formal mentor, actually.
Kim is very generous with his time, and I consider Kim a mentor of mine. And there's no formal agreement. He's just a very generous, giving person. Now, Jessica, as we wrap up, we've talked about a little bit about mentoring. We've talked about the requirements for Wellington right now, that you are hiring in certain positions, and it's not just driving positions. You did that very well. What else would you like to tell John or I about Wellington or about yourself?
Oh, wow. You're putting me on the spot.
We like doing that.
This is an interview, remember?
Yeah, I don't know. You can find so much information about me and about Wellington online, right? So it's like, if you want to learn more about our company, you can go on our website. If you want to learn more about me or if you want to connect with me, you can do so on LinkedIn or even on Facebook. I'm responsive on both. And I'm always here to answer questions. So I think the only thing I can really end this with is just saying, if there's anyone out there listening, if anyone is thinking about even getting into the industry or know someone that wants to get into the industry that just needs a little bit of help, maybe finding a good company, even if I can't help them, I'm willing to share information that I have about other companies out there that can help. And I'm always willing to listen and I'm always willing to help people. So I just connect with me.
What attracted you to the trucking industry? What got you into this?
I was pretty lucky in the very beginning. I finished high school and I applied to Challenger Motor Freight when they were on Queen Street. So this was before they moved to Maple Grove Road. And I believe I was the youngest person they ever hired in the office. All I was told was, don't make a fool out of me. You're the youngest person I've ever hired. And I was like, I won't. So I stayed there for 8 years. Learned, I started in customer service. I started in the entry level position, went into operations and was doing team dispatch before I left there. So they taught me a lot of good fundamental stuff that carried me into my future for sure. They have a good foundation there as well.
Nice. So it just goes to prove there's lots of opportunities in the trucking industry. It's not just about driving.
And I'm assuming that Jessica would say yes, and there's a hell of a future in the trucking industry, and it's not just driving.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, especially going to a lot of these conferences recently, is trying to get that younger generation aware that there's opportunity, even if it's not for not driving. I know that we have a driver shortage and we're trying to get more people driving and more women. in the industry as well. But I think a lot of young people just don't understand that there is a rewarding career in it. One of the things I've been considering very heavily is going to high schools and speaking
Yes.
in addition to high schools. We have drivers here that would willingly volunteer their time to take trucks over to a high school and let those students hop in a
Sure.
truck and see what it is. So it's just one of those things that we just need to come up with a plan and implement that plan and make
Yeah.
sure that we put that in motion, because I do think that it's so important.
You know, it's funny. One of the things that I think about is there's a program called Touch a Truck, and it's in different municipalities and communities and whatnot. And it all seems to be geared around young children, public school and whatnot, toddlers and stuff like that. I think the same could go for a high school opportunity to touch a truck. Come out. You know what? If you've got a mechanical inclination, come out and check out this truck. Come out and look at this truck. Come look at the back of this truck. You could be working on this truck. And then you've got the other ones. Maybe you want to drive, or hey, maybe you'd like to work in the office. Maybe you'd like to be a dispatch. Look at the truck. So I think more needs to be done around that, just like you're saying, get out to the high schools and take a couple trucks with you and talk about what it is. Wouldn't it be cool to have a load of iPhones, Xboxes, something in the truck that people are like, oh, comes in a truck.
And give one away to everybody that comes and visits.
Yeah, there you go.
I think like younger kids, especially the younger generation, they game. They're gamers, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand that you can still have a TV, you can still have your laptop, you can still game when you're in a truck, when you're driving a truck. So it's just one of those things, obviously not while you're driving the truck, but you're at the end of your day, you have your dinner and you can get on your laptop or on your TV and game the same way that you would do it at home. And the opportunities certainly are there. I just think a lot of people don't consider it or have never been taught that, or maybe just from a household that their families work in offices or work in the banks or stuff like that. So we've never been given the opportunity to actually get into a different industry. But yeah, it is so important.
There's that old tagline. It's been around for years and it's still popular. If you got it, a truck brought it. Yeah. I think a lot of people are like going, no, I went to Walmart and got that. Yeah. How do you think it got to Walmart? On Amazon. I just ordered it on Amazon. How do you think it got to you from Amazon? How do you think it got to the Amazon warehouse? So
that's why COVID really shone a light on all those drivers, right?
Yes.
All those heroes. And finally people were saying thank you. And I think that really was a touching time when I think back during COVID. I was one of those people that I worked all through COVID. I was very fortunate to be able to work through COVID and be able to help the community and make sure that there were drivers in the truck and make sure our drivers had everything they needed. And it was just wonderful to see the community notice drivers, which is very humbling for sure.
Yep. Perfect.
What a great way to wind up this interview. Thanks, Jessica. And for everybody, Jessica recently won the National Recruiting and Retention Symposium Recruiter of the Year Award. Jessica, thanks so much for coming on and telling us a little bit more about you and Wellington Motor Freight.
Yes. Thank you. It was awesome. Great story.
Thanks for joining us on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Jessica. Please leave us a like and don't forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. We are out of here. See you next week.